Welcome to Shout It Out, a Glitter Band podcast hosted by Warren Paul and Andy Chamberlain. Episode 9, Face of an Angel, Part 2. Our theme comes courtesy of Glenn Greenwood and John Springate. That track sounds nothing like the Angel Face covers we played in our last episode. I love the Face of an Angel intro, and the rest of the clip maintains some momentum. You still there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, can you help?
I think probably you better explain.
Yeah, well, what happened with this was Andy sent me this track about a year or so ago, I suppose, and he wasn't expecting to hear it, okay? And he made the point when we last chatted about this, which was probably a few months ago, that the track wasn't finished. I thought I'd throw it in anyway because I think it's really good. So I've thrown him. So I guess my question is, what's your aim with the track?
In what respect?
Well, maybe how do you envisage the final production?
So you've probably had that 15 months or so, at a guess.
Yep.
I've worked on this for quite a while, this particular song, along with some other cover versions that will be coming out at some point, when I can get back in the studio. Earlier in the year, I got some other vocalists to add to the beginning, the choir type intro. So that's beefed up already. Yep. So I've got to mix that because that's obviously quite difficult because there's quite a lot of layers and harmonies and stuff. Mm-hmm. Rethinking the drums because a certain band member said it sounded a bit military, so I took that on board. I have got drums on it on another version completely that one of the bands played on. So I don't quite know what's going to be done with it. The other thing is I've got to make the vocals sit because the vocals are very old recording.
But it does sound good to me, Andy, but we look forward to the finished version. That's the end of a slightly longer version of Angel Face that was used to back the band's TV performances. There'll be many listening whose introduction to the Glitter Band, as opposed to Gary Glitter's backing band, was on Top of the Pops. There was a flurry of Top of the Pops Angel Face appearances, 4 in 4 weeks, though producer Robin Nash waited until the record was in the top 10 until inviting the band to make their debut.
Yeah, so we know the dates of 28th of March, 4th of April, 11th of April and 18th of April 1974. For those appearances on Top of the Pops. But I think there's only 2 distinct performances, and to identify them, one is their band wearing the original white costumes that you see in the promo video as well, and the other one is obviously in the Hey album costumes. I can't really remember, in all honesty, but we think there are only 2 distinct performances but 4 showings overall. And really, we could do a bit of help with that, I think. Anybody who remembers seeing it.
I wonder if eternally helpful carbon daters, and that's a compliment, Rob Hanui and Steve Morris, or anyone else, can shed further light on the Top of the Pops appearances. Do you remember seeing them, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously once you see them on, you may have I can only speak about my memory. My memory is poor. But when I remember something, I remember it. And obviously, I remember the Hay outfits. But then, obviously, when you see Top of the Pops or any other show from that era, and you see it on YouTube, it brings it back more accurately. But I don't remember seeing the performance of the white suits, which is the same suits as the promo video that's out there as well.
Andy, I've found one other. They appeared on 45 at lunchtime on a Saturday. Do you remember seeing that?
I certainly don't know.
Well, you've got we've got in front of us, we have a paper clip giving the description. It was on at midday. It says, with Gary Glitter and the Glitter Band, Bay City Rollers and John Christie. Do you remember the show, the actual show?
I don't. No.
Oh, really?
Maybe I would if I saw a clip. That's the problem with me. I'm terrible. When something vaguely rings a bell, but I don't know that I watched it, to be honest, unless it was repeated. Because it was on at time of day, was it on?
Midday on a Saturday, which is not a great time, is it really?
No.
I mean, you'd be out doing things as a kid, wouldn't you? I would have been.
Well, it was probably with mates playing music somewhere or something.
Well, yeah.
Or my dad may have had football on the telly.
Sure,
I don't know.
Well, it's not really peak viewing time, is it?
No, I mean, if you think about the time that sort of the kids' morning TV shows used to be on, from like 9 o'clock in the morning, whatever, it doesn't really fit with that at all.
No, it's like they've just sort of thrown it away. Okay, well, maybe there might be some listeners who can remember seeing that. There will be, won't we? There'll be someone.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, Lift Off with Aisha, unless it was a reformatted I don't know. Somebody else will remember.
Well, it sounds like it didn't run forever anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
I'm sure everyone listening knows that Angel Face was originally issued as a 7-inch single, or 45. Like all 7-inch singles, it had a B-side. Apart from another B-side that was issued about a year later, there seems to be less production on this recording than any other Glitter Band track. It almost sounds like they've gone into the studio and the recording engineers pressed record, and then possibly, with Mike Leander, has done a quick mix. I think that's a good thing. What I've just said won't be right, but do you see or hear where I'm coming from, Andy?
I know what you mean, but so I think obviously they've changed the arrangement from earlier days, but the cymbals sound really washy, so some work's gone on in there. The bass is great at the beginning.
Just thought of something, Andy. I think, was it Andy Unger, who's now, if I pronounce, is Unger, is that his surname?
Unger, I think so.
Did he mention at one stage that he felt that recording which we've got off CD, has come off the 7-inch single, because I'm tending to think it possibly was as well, which is probably where the cymbal thing's coming from. It doesn't really sound like it's come off the master tape.
Yeah, that's got me thinking now. I mean, I think generally they've spent time on getting the bass sound right, the arrangement right. We know that Jerry's vocals double tracked and maybe a bit more than that, and a bit of delay on it and stuff. So I don't think it's completely play it and print.
Yeah.
I think some care's gone into it. I think John Hudson has done his usual job of, but it is a bit more
Looser? Does seem
rough and ready, looser. I don't know how to describe it. Really.
Well, I think Rough and Ready's pretty good. I just think it's a good contrast to the A side.
Yeah. I mean, a bit more time. You might have changed the vocalist on it if you'd spent a bit more time in it. I don't know.
What you mean, Springy could have sung it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You Wouldn't Leave Me, Would You's Genesis was 2 songs that the Glitter Band recorded in London's Mayfair studios with Mike Leander, studio engineer, who was an essential part of the Glitter sound, John Hudson. There's this one, which comprises most of the song. Part of this one.
So yes, if anybody is unaware, the first track was the demo of You Wouldn't Leave Me, Would You? And the other one was another demo of a song called Dancing. So essentially, they've taken the turnaround in that song, Dancing, and put it towards the end of You Wouldn't Leave Me, Would You? Final version. And it works really, really well. So they've taken good parts of the 2 songs, put them together, which is what you do with most songs generally through the writing process, or many songs. And it works really well. I think, from going back to what we were saying about the recording session for the B-side, I think quite a lot of time probably went into the arrangement or the rearrangement, and getting the sound and stuff sorted. So they probably did lay it down quickly, but they didn't just leave it like with a really poor vocal. They overdubbed it and got the bass sound really good, as I said. I like it.
From now on, we'll start covering the gigs the Glitter Band did with Gary Glitter, as well as their own shows. After Angel Face was released, the Glitter Band would always have their own solo segment during Gary's live performances.
With the possible exception of these particular shows, so they did a short tour of Scandinavia a couple of weeks after Angel Face was released. We've previously spoken about the Stockholm show where they met ABBA backstage in, I think, one of the Star Guitar episodes. And I think though Angel Face wouldn't have been released in the Scandinavian countries at that time, we'd love to know whether it was played during that particular tour. So hopefully we've got a Scandinavian listener or two with good memories about that can tell us whether they did play it.
I'll guess, and I'll say yes. As much as it appears Gary wasn't that keen on the Glitter Band pursuing their own career, by performing a couple of their own songs, they probably added some time for his costume changes, Andy.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Yeah, it definitely worked, even if they were he was reluctant or management were reluctant initially to have that in the live show. It worked to the advantage of all parties, really.
We are going to list the dates for the Glitter Band's second tour, which commenced shortly after Angel Face's release. We do this because hopefully it might bring back some memories for those who are fortunate enough to attend the shows. Would you care to lead off, Andy?
Okay, so the first one was in Ipswich on the 13th of April.
Then there's Portsmouth.
Hereford on the 19th.
Then Llanelli. Was that right?
Llanelli.
Could you say that again, please?
Llanelli.
Yeah, I should have given that one to you.
King's Lynn on the 26th.
Then there's Whitchurch.
Great Yarmouth.
Then the Corn Exchange in Cambridge.
Outwell Youth Centre.
Colchester.
Birmingham on the 7th of May.
Then there's the Top Rank in Reading.
And then they've completed with Wolverhampton on the 10th of May, unless you know of any secret gigs like previously that were slotted in.
Well, I tell you what, from what we've found, Andy, there were just gigs everywhere at this time. So there'd be no surprise if there were one or two others that just appeared. And we have a couple of reviews. I'll lead off with one at the Corn Exchange. And here's the headline: All glitter and no gold without Gary. Could you come up with a more predictable headline? I would tend to say no. It mentions that it wasn't a full house at Cambridge. Well, the Corn Exchange hold still around about 1,700, 1,800 people. So they've had just one single release. Why would you book them into a hole or a venue that big? So I think that was ill-conceived in terms of the booking. It's not a great review. It does make a comment. It says, I'll quote this bit: "It seems that on the strength of one top 10 hit, Angel Face, the group do not have sufficient audience allure." But it's a big venue. It also talks about a rather monotonous rendering of Sam Cooke's Twisting the Night Away. Well, we've been through this before several times where this song gets singled out. Well, I suggest those reviewers have not listened to Rod Stewart's version.
Yes.
And Stripe songs giving the same inflexible treatment. Okay, this person didn't want to be there. We've got to get out of this place. They're still playing that on this tour. Mentioned Still with a Kiss. Mentioned Tell Him. And another quote: "And for the encore, a scarcely recognisable version of the Spencer Davis Group song, Give Me Some Lovin'." Well, surely that was the point. That's why Mike did that arrangement, because it was different. And I think it works really well. So I think, they've just missed the point there. Oh, this is a good one. You'll like this. Another reason the group didn't attract much of an audience, perhaps, is because for all their glitter, they're all such ordinary-looking fellas. Now, Andy, we spend a bit of time on Facebook. Do you think there'd be a few fans who might disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, there were some worse headlines about the looks of the band as time went on.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, unfortunately. But, some male reviewers just being idiots, really.
I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, they basically, they're just they're trying to find fault, aren't they? I suppose.
Yes. Yeah.
And look, talking about reviewers, we have brought this up before, but there are two types: those who wanted to be there and those who were told to be there. Unlike the reviewer that we've just discussed, this next one wanted to be there. It's a pity we don't know which show this is, so hopefully there might be a fan who recognises the review's origins.
It starts saying that the atmosphere in the dressing room was calm, so this reviewers had access to the band there, and they say they're talking about the previous show, saying it was a great night. Jerry said this. The other band members nodded. It's a shame, as I say, we don't know which show this is that is being reviewed. But it talks about the act being very exciting, lights going dim, the two drummers, Tony and Pete, sneaking on in the darkness, red spotlight picking them out, and them drumming furiously in unison. Strobe light coming on, and that sort of weird effect of a Chaplin film, turning in the back and going into Twisting the Night Away. Then they actually did You Wouldn't Leave Me Alone live, with a compulsive beat apparently. Soon had everybody clapping, yeah.
That's the only fault I find in this review. They've got the name wrong, but it probably doesn't matter.
Yeah. Slowed it down with Everly Brothers. We've got to get out of this place. Strobe came back on. I'm just trying to pick out anything. Oh, okay. So this is a bit more interesting. The best number of the night was supposedly and undoubtedly the next one, Sealed with a Kiss. Jerry giving it a great new treatment, and it was great.
Yeah, I reckon that song's the great divider amongst fans, isn't it?
Yeah. Angel Face getting everybody clapping furiously. There was so much applause as the band came off the stage that they eventually came back and stood at the front of the stage shaking hands with as many people as possible. John Russell was pulled off the stage by fans. Then they played Give Me Some Loving, turned into the Angel Face reprise. The verdict is basically consider that they're one of the best and most exciting bands that they've seen for a long time.
Complete opposite of the previous review.
Yeah, it's just obscure, isn't it, to see two different reviews like that.
I was going to say there's a clue here, but it's not really. It says, for they had a long journey back to London that night. Well, that could have applied to just about any other show that we listed on that tour, couldn't it? So we've still got no idea. So that's a terrific review. And, well, more importantly than the nature of the review is the fact they've taken the trouble to listen to it and write down the songs.
Yeah.
So it's a review. It's not just a sort of, what I described as a quite nasty diatribe.
Yeah, and they've taken interest in the band members' names and who's on vocals. That's
what journalists do, Andy. They do a bit of research. One show we do have some information about, and definitely know its location, was attended by Joe Swinford. In common with the gig that we covered in a previous podcast, Joe went the extra mile and wrote down the set list. Andy, it's so good that people like Joe and Baton and Lorraine Hammond have been willing to share their memories and stories with us.
Oh, very much so. It was good to meet Anne and Lorraine at the gig 3 weeks ago now, and just
what about that jacket, Andy?
Yes, yeah. But it was great to thank them for their contributions to information for previous episodes. But I say, without those people who were there, maybe a bit more able to go to the shows than some of us younger ones, or restricted ones, wouldn't have as much to relate to the listeners.
It just brings it alive.
Yeah.
The gig that Joe attended was Exeter, St George's Hall, and it was on Monday, May the 13th, 1974, Andy.
That's it. And he's recorded the set list as starting with Rock On, then All I Have to Do Is Dream, We Got to Get Out of This Place, Tell Him, Baby I Don't Care, Sealed with a Kiss, Twisting the Night Away, Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2, Give Me Some Loving, Angel Face, You Wouldn't Leave Me, Would You, and Sea Cruise. And going after that review, it's like maybe it looks like it's a different order, but
I think Joe's got all the songs there, but they may not quite be in set order. Possibly, but we don't know.
Or they haven't come across properly in set order from the reviewer. Yeah,
that's a very good point. And of course, the problem is we weren't there, so we don't really know, do we?
No.
So that's another small mystery. But look, thanks again to Joe, and we've got a couple more of future episodes of Joe's set lists to come. So Joe's just a gem. At the time of this tour, Angel Face was riding high in the charts. It entered the UK top 30 at number 26 in the last week of March. 4 weeks later, it reached its peak position of number 4. Now, there are number 4s and then there are number 4s, so that's a bit cryptic, but we'll discuss that further later in this episode. Andy, I see you have another chart in front of you, one that you don't see too often or come across too often.
So you mean the Radio Luxembourg
That's
chart?
the one. Where's Angel Face?
Well, it's actually at number 1. Which, yeah.
That's a bit of contradiction with the other charts we have. Would you mind giving us the top 5?
Okay, so Angel Face number 1. 2 is Terry Jacks with Seasons in the Sun. Mud at 3 with The Cat Crept In. Slade with Every Day at 4. And Remember Me This Way by Gigi at 5.
We're not sure how the Radio Luxembourg chart was calculated. It seems to be a prediction of the next week's BBC chart, influenced by listener response to its playlist. The Radio Luxembourg chart had a huge audience, or the chart show, the Radio Luxembourg chart show had a huge audience in the millions, and there's one part of the world where it seems listeners never missed a show. Andy, one of these listeners recently put together a YouTube playlist.
The listener, Kajlink, I think maybe the name is pronounced, from Poland, had this to say. This playlist is my attempt to retrace the music that was not played behind the Iron Curtain at all. Only thanks to Radio Luxembourg were we able to keep up with what was the current in the popular music in the West. Thanks to YouTube, I was able to find the majority of the highest ranked hits of 1972, and that was the first year I heard about Radio Luxembourg.
Did you ever listen to Radio Luxembourg?
Yeah, okay. I did.
What was the signal like? Did it sort of fade in and out, or?
Well, no, I think the signal was dodgy and everything.
Fair enough.
Back in those days, you got little transistor radios, very new, and everything was a bit. Somebody walked past the house or whatever, and it came back. So none of it was great, but sometimes you got good reception, I think.
To finish with Luxembourg, we have a photo of the participants in a game of football.
So there's a photo, and obviously we identified John Springate in it.
Where is he? Second from the right, isn't he?
Yeah, I could see maybe possibly David Jensen in it and some others I sort of vaguely recognise.
You know what, Andy? I've just picked something up in that photo. Sorry to jump in.
Go on.
I reckon in John's right hand he might have a cigarette.
Probably, yeah.
Times have changed.
But we know that John Russell and John Springate flew over to Luxembourg for some interviews, and this photo includes John, but John Russell wasn't in the photo, although he appeared, he was there.
Yeah.
And it's puzzling because John Russell was a keen footballer, apparently. But it's interesting that, surprising, they fitted the football match in as well as all the interviews and the fact they just commenced the UK tour.
Yeah, well, if you look at the date, which is the 16th of April, I just don't know how they did it. They must have just flown. They've obviously flown across for the day. They did a few interviews, which you mentioned. They've done a few interviews, played the game of football, and they probably just went straight back. Maybe they even had a gig that evening. Haven't checked that, but it's possible. I mean, geez, it was a hectic time, wasn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
We go back to the UK for our next chart. The Melody Maker Top 30, which also appeared in the Daily Mirror, which never gets a mention, and that's a pity, as Angel Face peaked at number 2. Following, we have an assortment, which seems to be rather random, of charts from other parts of the world. We know the list is not comprehensive. For example, the Glitter Band toured Scandinavia a few times. We can find no evidence of one of their records charting. If anyone has chart information from countries that we've missed, we would love to hear from you. Andy, the Glitter Band's largest market for Angel Face outside the UK was Germany. How did it perform?
Very well. It was released in Germany about a month after the UK release of the song. It quickly entered the top 10, peaking at number 6. and spending actually a very long 17 weeks in the chart there. Angel Face also performed well in Finland and reached number 13 there.
Let's hear a little more about charts from John Russell.
Are you ready? This is our first record. It's a hit in Brisbane. It's a hit in Melbourne. It's a hit in Adelaide. Come on, Sydney. Come on, Sydney. Right. Hey. Hey.
Andy, I think I sent you this clip a while ago and you had one question. Now, do you remember what it was?
Yeah. Was it eventually a hit in Sydney?
Well, before we find out the answer to your question, John Russell has described well how the Australian charts worked. In fact, at that time, Australian states were almost like their individual countries. Each state had a top 40 radio station, though some were loosely linked. It was up to the individual music directors to decide whether a single was to get airplay. Obviously, at the time, Angel Face was being played in all the Australian capital cities, with one major exception, Sydney. The gig excerpt we've just played comes from a sold-out 5,500 in the audience Gary Glitter show at the Hordern Pavilion. There were 3 sold-out Hordern Pavilion concerts on that tour. I'm sure they all featured the same Angel Face intro. It was a clever move of JR's to plug the song. Let's listen to the rest of the song. It's not perfect quality, but better than most audience recordings of that time. That was what may be the only surviving live recording of the original six-piece glitter band featuring John Rossell. We're grateful to Paul Kirk for posting on YouTube and Wazza from Oz, who's not me, who took his life into his own hands and snuck a tape recorder into the concert. Andy, I've just picked up something on that recording. Is that in the chorus, Jerry's singing it like the record, which he generally didn't do.
Yeah, she's singing it. Yeah, I think overall the performance is a bit more static. There doesn't seem to be too much push and pull on the playing and stuff.
It's pretty
like,
early, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems quite rigid.
And it's interesting to hear a performance in front of an audience who haven't heard the record.
Yes, yeah.
But certainly I think it just became more rocky as their performances developed. I mean, you compare that to the version they did at the New Victoria on Gary's farewell tour, where it's a full-on rock version, I think, compared to that. And his vocal, particularly in the chorus, is quite different.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, yeah. So as John said, the record was doing well in Melbourne, and it eventually peaked at just outside the top 10, at number 11 in Melbourne. We've only been able to find one chart from Adelaide in the second week of its placement in the chart there. It moved from 36 to 28. Looking at the patterns of other Adelaide charts, it's highly likely that Angel Face would have comfortably entered the top 20. A slightly smaller, maybe a lot smaller town is Noosa in southern Queensland. The good news is that its radio station 4NA issued a chart. In mid-October, Angel Face was sitting there at number 16. But that's the only 4NA chart that we could find, and it had probably been in the top 40 for a while, so it's quite likely that it made the top 10 in there as well.
Isn't it funny how we can find obscure music charts of places like Noosa, but as we've, I think, mentioned before, but nothing for countries such as Sweden and Denmark. So hopefully,
yeah,
I know we don't want to labour the point too much, but let's hope there is someone who can help.
Yeah, I mean, if they just remember colloquially rather than precisely, some feedback on chart placement and stuff there would be really, really helpful. We have another chart which tells quite a story, actually. It's Record Mirror Top 50 chart, and it's an end-of-year Top 50 in the UK. Now, in this particular chart, Angel Face is a number 4 reaching song, but it's actually listed at number 33 in the end-of-year chart. And it's actually something like 4 places in front of Mud's The Cat Crept In, which was number 2. Only 7 places away from Gary Glitter's number 1 hit, Always Yours. Remember Me This Way, which peaked at number 3 here, didn't make this particular chart at all. So it's interesting to see this, yeah. So it makes you think that Angel Face's sales were actually over a long period of time, which probably bears the testimony of people bought the record because they liked what they heard, rather than rushing out to buy, their favourite artist's new single. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Sydney. Here's the Glitter Band performing at Selena's in the early 80s. What do you think about the audience's response? I'll play it again.
Yeah.
Right, so that's recordings from Sydney in the early 80s. The previous recording was in 1974, and JR mentioned that Sydney radio wasn't playing the song. Then you asked me, did it eventually get played and did it get in the chart? So what do you think? What's your judgment based on that?
Well, somewhere along the line, they're very familiar with it and are enthusiastic to hear it, so it must have done well.
It did. What happened took a while, but in September of that year, and this is a 2SM chart, it got to number 3, but there are a couple of charts missing, so it possibly got to number 2.
Right. Oh, okay.
So I reckon we give JR 10 out of 10 for that, because it obviously wasn't being played. That original concert, 74 Hordern Pavilion, it was not being played, which is why he's pushed it. So he would have pushed it at all 3. So I'm prepared to guess that a whole lot of kids at that concert, or the audience I should say, called up the radio station the day after the concert saying they wanted to hear that song.
I mean, to be honest, the one thing that struck me was that if you'd gone to that show to see Gary, I think you'd have walked away from the show with the chorus of Angel Face in your head, to some degree, new song, just to be honest, and it would be in your head and you'd be trying to find out how you get it. So that's not, that's really, it's really good that the people really, or the young people, whatever, went out there and demanded it somehow.
Well, that's what's happened, because I'm looking at the Melbourne chart where I think it peaked the month before. So there's no doubt that they started playing that after those shows in Sydney in 74. So well done to the Sydney fans.
Yeah, very good.
And here's another live version of the same song from Walthamstow.
Walthamstow.
Fix me up at the end of it, will you?
Yeah.
Here's one you might remember. You're a child of sweet 16, never made a big time thing. Always loved to stay home, never made it on your own. I see a picture.
So that's Walthamstow. Is it? Well, it's actually Walthamstow.
Is it really?
Sorry,
It's Walthamstow.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
sounded.
so
funny to me.
what you're saying
But,
is...
it's only a few miles from me, actually.
So what you're saying is I don't just get the Welsh ones wrong then.
Well, it's difficult because at least East Hampstead, not rather than So it's you've got to be familiar with the pronunciation.
Yeah, not just the Welsh ones. I'm tempted to say that maybe Jerry left his star guitar at home, but as this was one of Gary's gigs, maybe not.
No, I don't think that was the case. This gig was, I think, the Walthamstow Assembly Hall. I was there, and I think the star guitar was playing Gary's tracks. But there was a definite shift going on around there, a definite ploy to alter the band's little section. Because I remember Goodbye My Love had disappeared for a few songs, and Rock On came in. I thought that was a particular ploy to, because Gary's prominence was rising again then, bigger venues and what have you, and I think there was a deliberate ploy to keep it Gary themed. I've talked about this before, and inevitably I think it was pushed down to the one track, but they made Angel Face a bit longer because there's an instrumental break later in this performance.
I think there was a Pete drum solo at one stage.
Yeah.
So was this coming from Gary's management?
I think so, yeah. You've got to remember, it's only a little while after this that they stopped working with him, so there was a bit of a pushing around and shoving and manipulating going on to, push Gary out there a bit more. So I don't know all the politics of it, but there was something going on. So this particular version of Angel Face was a drawn-out version. That's all they performed, I think.
Before we finish, let's play a couple of versions of Angel Face that the writers, John Rossell and Jerry Shepherd, were respectively involved in. The first track is not great quality, quite a few clicks unfortunately. We'd love to hear from anyone who has a better copy. We played a Belgian cover version in our Face of an Angel Part 1 podcast. Unless I'd heard this track, I couldn't conceive Angel Face being covered in this funky style. I think it works very well. I like it a lot. It is John Russell. The question is, Andy, did Belgium's Harlem Highway get the idea first, or did JR?
We know from the dating and stuff that the John Haldenberg version of Angel Face came before the Russell and the Gang version. We know that for a fact. So that was something opportunistic or capitalised upon that led to the Russell and the Gang version. It certainly made that happen and inspired it.
True.
I would hate to say that history repeated itself, or history considered itself back in 75 or whatever it was.
75, yeah. But the Russell and the Gang version was released as a single, where this, what we've just heard, it's not really anywhere. It's not on the internet. No, I can't remember where I got this from. It is pretty obscure.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, as you say, it was never released, so you can't be critical of it, saying it's been ripped off a Belgian version.
I can't remember him even mentioning it, because John was anyone, I'm sure there'll be people here who follow John on his Facebook site, and I don't think he ever mentioned this. He mentioned a lot of things, but I cannot recall him mentioning this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if they were collecting songs, you never know. He or Mike may have heard the version from Belgium and said, "Oh, let's try and." Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just.
Or of course, the other side is it could have been the opposite. He could have just done that and sent it around a bit, in order for it to be covered.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know, Warren. It's just difficult.
No, we don't know, do we? The only reason I put this song in is it is such a mystery. This one.
Yeah, no, I'd like the backing, the music and everything, the funk. I like it. Yeah.
Oh, well, he's done something different. That's the key. And
well, I say he, probably Mike has.
Yeah, it does. It's funny you said that. Interesting you said that. It does sound like I hadn't thought of that till you mentioned it.
When you think of Mike's songs, Chopper, and
yeah, sure,
and, what's the other one, Roly Poly, and all those sort of things, you think it's definitely a Mike Leander.
I hadn't thought about that until you brought it up, but you're right. That is definitely a Mike Leander production, and
featuring him.
Yes, playing on keyboard, obviously.
Keyboards, guitar, drums, bass. him or John.
Looking at about that time, his singles weren't produced. I don't think they were produced. I think Mike gets. Does Mike get a credit? I think it was. I think they're credited to Mike and Eddie Seago. I think JR singles they were, but they don't sound like Mike Productions, where that one does.
Yes, yeah. Well, we know some of the band Jet played on some of his tracks, don't we? Or certain members.
We do, and we have. I mean, this is a bit of a teaser. We shouldn't do this, but we do have another version that you and I have heard of one of his B-sides, which has some very familiar drumming guitar on, Andy. Okay.
Yeah.
One more.
Okay, so yeah, pleased to be talking about this one for sure. This is a version attributed to, it was a dance act really called Shock. And so just to explain a bit more, Richard Burgess, who was in Landscape, who's a producer in his own right and arranger and stuff for that sort of thing. Rusty Egan of the Rich Kids, Visage, and so on, and DJing and various organising stuff at the Blitz Club, etc.
Did one of them play drums with the Skids? I think they did.
Rusty may have done yeah. Nice guy, actually. So in that scene, I mean, obviously a lot of us were at these clubs and Camden Palace later on and things like that. So, we were hearing a lot of, new electro type stuff coming in. So it was just beats and things. But they put this track together with John Hudson, who was producing it at Mayfair Studios. But obviously, because they were a dance act, so you had these two guys, Tick and Tock, two guys who were... I won't use the word iconic, but that's probably the best way to describe them, I suppose. Stand out, and then the girls behind them and stuff. None of them could really sing, so there was a light bulb moment where John Hudson said he had the phone number for one of the co-writers of the song and the singer of the song. Of course, that's Jerry Shepherd. Should he see if he'll come in and help out with some backing vocals? And that's how Jerry came to be involved and put the lead vocal down on the track.
Let's hear part of the song again. Andy, that's definitely Jerry.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Good story.
Doing lead vocals and backing vocals on it, and you've got the little angel face bit by the girls in Shock, but very interesting release, and loved it to pieces when we first heard it.
It's I love John Hudson's production on that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Richard Burgess was mucking about with synths and stuff like that in those early stages, and John obviously helped capture it all. and the drums and stuff from Rusty.
Put all the bits together, I guess. We're almost there. We're finishing with the live version of Angel Face from the New Victoria Theatre in early 1976. Apart from backing Gary Glitter on that show, the Glitter Band also performed their own 7-track set. It probably helps that it was recorded professionally, but it's my favourite live version of the song.
Yeah, it's a favourite of mine. So I pick out the extended drum break bit between the chorus and verse. So I like that bit in it particularly. They perfected the song well by performing it for a good couple of years together. So yes, it's a good performance. Very enjoyable actually.